welcome to the Canopy Practice Success Podcast. I'm Casey Brothers from Canopy, and I'm here with Andrew Lassise from Tech for Accountants, but most recently purchased by Rightworks. Andrew, tell us about yourself.
Well, hey, Casey, thank you so much for having me. And wow, about myself. So, this guy that I grew up thinking that I was going to be a financial advisor, and I graduated in '09 with a financial planning degree
Oh no,
during the
in
recession. And
2009.
yeah, so it turns out nobody wanted to hire a financial planner with no experience in financial planning during a recession. So did restaurants for a decade and randomly landed in IT. I'd always had a passion for it. Worked at this startup that went from 10 employees to 500 in less than a year. And
Wow.
the pure chaos of being part of
Yeah.
that. And then some friends said, "Hey, we're starting a company." And I was like, startups are risky, even though I was in
Yep.
like a complete crazy thing. Then, but I was 26, 27, no family, little
Yeah.
bit of savings. And I was like, let's do it, see
Yeah.
what
If you're going to take a
happens.
risk, that's the
Right.
time to do it.
And they went out of business in 3 months. But despite themselves, though, I was running the whole tech department and made an agreement with the owner. I'd always wanted to do my own thing and sort of used that as the jumping off point. And I said to the owner, I will continue to do everything and we don't have to tell people we're out of business. They pay you for 2 months. And then every time the phone rings after those 2 months, I'm just going to update their billing. So everybody keeps paying you. You don't have to pay me. And we'll see where that takes us. And, here we are 10 years later. It worked out pretty well.
What? Well done. Well done. Well, I feel like you have so much to offer, which is probably why a company like Rightworks saw the good things you were doing and was like, we need to have Andrew on board. Because the accounting industry, I'm just going to go off of some two companies that I'm fairly familiar with that have been around since the 70s that aren't super tech forward solutions. And so as a result, I think the industry got used to that was the status quo and that there wasn't necessarily challenges there. And I've seen a lot of accountants that they go in just like any entrepreneur to build a business with the skill set they have, not realizing that by being a business owner of sorts, wherever you're at in the firm, however large your firm is, there are business needs you need to engage in. One of the most important being tech. So where do you start when you're talking to people who the status quo for them for tech is stuff that looks like Windows 95?
Yeah, we do run into that quite a lot. And I think for a lot of people, status quo, what did we do last year? Well, let's just do it again this year. It
Comfort.
worked and we know how it works. We know where it's good, where it's bad, but we're at least familiar with it.
Yeah.
And
The devil you
so
know versus the devil you don't.
exactly. And so usually people will come to us in a when it comes to consulting with a tech stack in a our way. Used to work when we had 3 employees. Now we have 10, 15, 20. Our old way does not work. It does not scale.
Yeah.
We have a million emails with a million different things. One person was working with one client exclusively. They left. Everything is in their brain. There has to be a better way. That's usually where the tipping point is, where something big happens. And then there's people on the other side that are sort of in the appaholic realm where they're like, I've got 7,000 apps and I know that
Oh,
there's 500 more and I want them
the
all.
secondhand overwhelm I feel hearing that.
I used to be in that category as a business owner. Every time we would run into some obstacle with some piece of software, we have to get another one, a different one. newer, better, faster. And then really what we came to realize too was just because it solves the one pain point that you have in one spot doesn't mean that it won't come with things that you took for granted on your other software that you thought,
Mm,
well, don't they all do that? And then
yeah.
turns out they don't. So, really getting things to talk with each other, integrating, having a central source of truth, and building off of that is really the starting point for a lot of the tech stack conversations.
Yeah. And in 2024, right, you can't, in a world too where we have recent launches of AI in various forms. I know there have been conversations of, is AI going to replace me? I want to say like a tax prep activity, some level of tax preparation was one of the first examples put into chat gpt when it got really big just in the last year or so. And there was this fear there. But I think now, and I know you've had content, and maybe we share that out in the description of this later, where you've talked about that, addressing, okay, is it really going to replace my job or not? But where do you see AI taking firms of all sizes, right? And maybe we split it up a little bit into, I mean, however you would like to segment these sizes.
So I think we have to just look back historically when there have been things that are disruptive to a industry at large. And I think a lot of people are on board now where this is right now
Mm,
we're 1997 AOL and saying what
mm,
the internet's going to look like, or we're 2010 talking about the first iPhone and what that's going to look like. That's this generation's disruptive thing that will
yeah,
change everything. I don't think at this point now, ChatGPT's been out for almost 2 years, 18
yeah,
months ish. I don't think anyone's going to argue that anymore. That's been the
yeah.
side that I've been on and firmly still
Yeah, I think the
believe in.
argument more now is, how can you prove you're using it? Because if you're not, you're going to be left behind. I feel this in my job in marketing, where we there's a level of proof that I feel like, and this hasn't been said to me. I feel like maybe I'm connecting some dots here, that we need to say that we're involving ourselves in this so that our CEO can talk to a board of directors or investors, because it's crucial now. There's not a point at which we are just able to say, no, we're fine without it. We can move on. It's like, uh-uh.
Yeah, well, especially Canopy. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
were the ones that had the AI integration when it was, and I guess now it's been a year or close to a year since it was
Mhm.
like Canopy, the one
Yep.
that has the AI built in, help your communications, da da da, this and that. But what I was getting at before, though, with the displacement of
Yes.
jobs, if we go back 200 some years, about 40% of the population they were farmers,
Yeah.
and that constituted ditch digging and all sorts of things. And then the tractor comes along, and the tractor got rid of tons of jobs,
Yeah.
and irrigation started becoming automatic, and all of these things started changing the way agriculture worked. So at the time, there were not operators of these machinery. So people were no longer farmers, they were operating the machinery. So fast forward 200 some years and where we're at now, 2% of the population are farmers, but all of the opportunities and things that came out of the machinery and things that were built as a result, that's where they have spread out. And you don't hear about farmers saying, I wish tractors weren't invented. That's just made things so much worse. But go back then, people were probably feeling that way. I mean, just anecdotal, but I would take a guess that a lot of what people are feeling now with, well, accounting, will it take my job? And that was the example. Look, we did tax prep. And so, I mean, a lot of the low level compliance things,
Yeah.
I mean, people have been building software for this all along. So you've got things like TurboTax that have existed, and these have been available to the market. There probably isn't a single client that a tax preparer has or firm has that isn't aware that there is TurboTax as an alternative, or that you could do it by yourself for free. So this is a little different in that it's a lot more accessible, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong with this, but these things have already existed. It's just different and shinier. And all the apps for a long time pre ChatGPT, when ChatGPT came out, it was on GPT 3.5. There were
Yeah.
GPTs
Yes.
before that. So a lot of software has had AI analyzing these things,
Yep.
machine learning in the background. It's just now the public has their hands on it and can see the opportunities and potential and threats. And I think
Yes.
that's really where we're at now. And like you said, with marketing, some of the things that I know marketing firms would do, so maybe not internal, but it would be hire content writers for one-off things for blogs. And you would pay X dollars, and now you could at least get a framework, or just have it type the whole thing, maybe have someone come and edit a couple things. I'm not in that world, but a lot of the just sort of grunt work will get automated, and then
Yeah.
the the need will be for how do we do the higher level things.
Which
And
I see as so exciting. Who likes the grunt work? I mean,
right,
maybe there's a time and place where like, okay, I could use a busy work day so I can have a Netflix show running in the background. This needs to get done, but then I'll enjoy whatever it is I'm listening to. But I see that more as a okay, if I can get this grunt work taken care of, again, like you said, I can focus on these higher earning activities and maybe even work less. Go figure, right?
right. I mean, and I mean, I do a lot of marketing as well. So, just a for instance of something that was very unique on my plate that most likely AI wouldn't have come up with. And I mean, we'll probably look back on this 5 years later and be like, not only could it have, but we asked it to go back to this time when you thought of this, and it found a million ways that you failed. But for us, we focus a lot on cybersecurity, and
Yeah.
the FTC safeguards rule essentially said you need to have cybersecurity if you're doing tax or you have access to people's books. So pretty
Yeah.
much all bookkeepers, tax prep have to abide by these laws. And so, and they had a deadline on it. It was June 9th of last year, so 23. And so I saw the writing on the wall that this was going to be a giant need because a lot of people aren't that tech savvy. And so we built up a whole lot of marketing and underground infrastructure to be able to get this out, scale it, and all these things. And where if you just said to AI, what should my next marketing campaign be? Oh, well, we recommend sponsoring Habitat for Humanity. You will get your name out there to people that are nice people that contribute to charity, and they will catapult your company. They're just very generic ideas, but where it's like we work specifically with accountants and bookkeepers. This is something that will apply to all of them very uniquely, and understanding the market and things like that. And it's not that AI couldn't, but unless you knew what you were talking about as the user of the AI, if you very, very specifically said, we do IT specifically for accounting firms,
Yeah.
cybersecurity. There's going to be new cybersecurity requirements. How could we put this together? You would have to be prompting it. And so it's really about how you use it and using it correctly and effectively, and not just the generic do my job for me, but
Yeah.
teaching it the specifics
Well,
and
and to
knowing how
that
to do
point,
that.
I think too we've reached a point where technology companies like canopy have seen that it's, I mean, we moved pretty fast. We saw what it meant, knew we needed to act and not drag our feet. And it paid off for us. And more companies have felt similarly, right, and have integrated it in some form or fashion. And I think the issue is no longer how do I, as an accountant, utilize this. I don't think we need to encourage accountants to perfect their prompting skills, but rather to your skill set is looking at the tech stack that has incorporated AI in a way that is most beneficial, because it is getting into everything in a way that, as long as you have the right tools, you are going to be leveraging AI in an easy and approachable way to you. Because again, it's not just this, I have to come up with ways to utilize OpenAI on my own. I don't have to come up with ways to utilize AI on my own. Rather, as long as I do the work to find the tools and integrate them into my business, I'm going to be reaping the benefits of AI.
And that's very true. You don't have to become a prompt engineer just to be an accountant and help your clients. However, being able to leverage it as well and understanding the nuances, being able to safely put information in and say, these are the things that I'm going to talk to my clients about. What else could I be looking at? What might I have missed? Or my clients' goals are to minimize their AGI this year. Or flip side, my customer is looking to sell their company. They don't want to focus on ad backs. They just want the end of the year return to look as good as humanly possible for prospective buyers. So, the story that you want to tell and not just popping it in, understanding how to use it is great for that. But like you said, picking a technology stack that already utilizes these things and does it for you
Yeah,
so that you can just say, my client needs to send me documents. I am furious. Send this in a polite tone.
seriously.
Yeah. And
Keep my mood in check.
yeah, yeah. I'm going to list 10,000 reasons why you are the worst. And it will politely say, well, this is the nice way to do it. Like one time my wife, her and her parents went to Costa Rica with two of our children. I was home with the one. And then my wife was like, we want you guys to come. And I was like, how do I tell her no without making her want to kill me? And AI was like, leverage your daughter. Say it's not safe to fly with a 1 year old.
I love it. I've used ChatGPT in my marriage. My husband's a big words of affirmation individual, and it's not my strength. And I put something in and asked, like, hey, give me a list of 25 affirmations based on my husband's qualities. And I listed some things out about him. And I would text him affirmations, and he never caught on that it was written by AI, but he loved it. It filled his cup, and I was wife of the year for a month.
Right? I'm
But
in the same boat as you. Like
yeah,
I know I should. Maybe I'll just have AI make an app that like makes the affirmations, sends them from
yes,
my phone, and just like lets me know what
brilliant.
was said in case it was brought up.
I love it. Well, on that, um, sorry, I just had a pregnant moment, and I'm trying to think. I had a thought, and I'll edit this out. I apologize. Um,
No worries. The fact that you're even doing this, kudos there. It's your
Thank you.
affirmation. You're a hard worker that deserves the world.
um, there was oh, I feel like I've said this on the podcast before in various forms, because I feel like it applies so much to accountants and the accounting industry. But a phrase I love is just slow down to speed up. And this can be hard as ambitious individuals, as an entrepreneur, as an owner, as someone who's responsible. I've got all this on my plate. How in the world am you're telling me to slow down? What do you mean? And how is slowing down going to speed me up? And the reason I bring this up now is because we've been talking about tech stacks. If you're not familiar with the latest technology in the industry, you need to get familiar. And it is important to set aside billable activities, whether you're doing flat or hourly rate, I don't care. You need to, it is essential right now. Where if you have not looked at what is in the market and what is being offered to accountants right now in the last 18 months, you need to take, I mean, how much time would you recommend? I was almost about to say a full work week if you're a partner.
I mean, it's a gigantic pill to swallow because what is out there, there are infinite things. I would say though, when trying to filter things down, go with, and this isn't just because it's recorded for Canopy, but we'll just say a market leader that is well recognized with a lot of clients and not try to find, well, here's this random one off obscure thing, and we're going to be their fourth client ever and
Yeah,
help
yeah,
them
no.
build it. Like, it's so great in theory, but the reality is a lot of companies disappear. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of companies haven't had a lot of eyeballs on them to help them build over time. So it's not that they can't be great or won't be great or aren't currently great.
Right.
But when you're really looking for a tech stack to utilize, going with the market leaders and just
Yeah,
kind of price obviously will play a role in anything, but really look at who is leading the market and kind of piece together they're probably the big names because they're doing something right. And everything has its flaws, that is going to be a given no matter what you get. And recognizing though, the at least comparing the big names and what they have available,
yeah.
and then there's so much documentation. You can ask peers how to use it. These are all mistakes that I made early on where I was just trying to find the best product for what I thought we were going to be doing. And
Mm-hmm.
then, despite ourselves, we grew from me in my living room to we had 50 employees in 6 offices at one point, and nothing that we started the company with was built for any of that.
Yeah.
We literally would have been better on a spreadsheet and at least have a CSV
Well, and
to.
that actually brings up another point that I feel like I've picked up on with accountants, more so than any other industry I've worked in. They're just not a typical, or for me, typical to me, um, buyer of tech, of software. Um, so maybe we wrap up our conversations talking about how do you evaluate software? What are the things you should be thinking of? What do you think about before you even step into looking at software? I'd love your thoughts.
When evaluating software stack, what I'd really start off with is not looking at everything that's available and making your list of what is important to you at this time without being swayed by, well, everybody seems to have this feature and this one doesn't have it. And therefore, I can't use them because this feature that I never even thought of, that frankly I don't know if I will use or not, but this FOMO and over analyzing. So starting it off with, where are my pain points currently?
Yes. Yes.
And then
And
building
getting really
off.
clear and to your point, sticking your ground. This is where I'm most frustrated. This is where things fall through the cracks in our workflow. This is where I things fall through between me and people internally or me and my clients. But yeah, getting really specific. Yes.
Yeah, and because we've been through this so many times. So I'm not even speaking from a consultant point of view, but just a business owner point of view that's
Yeah.
gone through this so many times. And the problem that we ran into was we were growing so fast that changing our stack just, the best time to change your stack is yesterday. The next best time is right now,
Yeah.
because unless you're planning on just your practice going to the ground, I mean, there's really no downside to having good technology that runs, especially if it's got a lot of different modules and can be, for the most part, that single pane of glass and that single point of truth where it's easier to train people, get them to understand, and things that you just take for granted, like our CRM doesn't integrate with anything. And when it was just me, that's fine because I know all the clients by name. I know their things. I don't even need to really look it up. But you have 5 people, and now all of a sudden, okay, well, yeah, we'll just document it in a documentation app that doesn't talk to the CRM, and we'll just manually update the CRM every time. And we did
Blech.
a giant overhaul. I got so good at coding Python and Zapier just to kind of get things to work where
Patchwork.
it's, yeah, where it's like, wouldn't it have been great all along if just things integrated? QBO has a million apps that connect with it, and it's like you just don't think about how convenient the integrations are unless you're the dude that is me, that spends so much time reinventing the wheel all for these things, for decisions that I made on the tech stack that,
Yeah.
and it's great now I have the skills and things, but if you're working in the accounting industry, probably that's not the best place to leverage your skills. And you had mentioned people coming in as the technician. I'm very good at what I do,
Yeah.
but now I am running a business, and that is very different than the things that I came in doing. And so not just owning a job, but owning a company,
Yeah.
and all the
And
things
tech
that
is,
that come with that.
yeah, tech is a big part of that. It's the cogs and wheels in between the big machinery, the machinery being your employees who have these killer skills. If you don't keep those cogs and wheels lubricated too with updated functionality that keeps things running smoothly and fast, like it's easy to feel bogged down. It's easy to work 60, 70 hours a week thinking that's what you have to do. It's easy to feel like um there just isn't time in the day to do these slow down to speed up, work on the business instead of just working in the business activities. um Tech, you can't live without it. You just got to face it, right? And like, again, hopefully the big takeaway here is that there are so many solutions. Like, even in I frequently look at our G2 grid of practice management. And just in the last year and a half, there have been several entrants into our um, competitive landscape. To me, that says that there are people who recognize that there is a gap, that there is an opportunity to better serve accountants. And makes me grateful to work at Canopy and that we've been around the block for as long as we have and are serving the industry in that regard. And is actually just an affirmation, positive affirmation to me that we're doing the right things. But you see that in several other aspects of accounting as well, where there are just more and more providers entering because there's a need. And so to your point, maybe we wrap it up really quick with that process. Identify your pains, jump in and look at some well recognized brands as a pertains to the solutions that you're looking for. Be clear with the sales individuals that you interact with. Don't feel like you're going to hurt feelings. They're there to sell, and you'll have different interactions with different companies. Hopefully, they're all good. Hope we're past the days of terrible salesmanship.
That car
um,
dealership
yeah,
mentality.
yeah. Sales reps know that there's that stereotype, and I think they realize, like, I just need to be a human. Anyway, I love our sales reps. They're some of my best friends at work. But be real. Don't be afraid to shoot straight with them, and then make a decision, and recognize that, like, I don't know, lastly, if you want to end on some sort of takeaway on implementation and adoption, because it's hard. It's hard to make a change. It's hard to train your team. It can be hard even sometimes to prove ROI.
Yeah, the implementation piece, I mean, for better or worse, what I have done is I work hand in hand with the implementation team at the company, and I am documenting every step of the way because no two companies are going to use something exactly the same. So I kind of put together our flavor of how we are going to be using the software. And once I have that down, then I start rolling it out to everybody else so that we can have an ongoing piece of documentation where people can look to how do we do it and not just have me be the one everybody, because then everybody's asking me how to do things. So I'm a big fan of documentation so that you can scale and remove yourself.
Yeah.
But having a very very strong understanding, and especially if you're in a company where you're wearing a lot of hats and you understand, okay, maybe I don't work in sales, but I could talk to a couple prospects, see what this process looks like. I could do double entry. I can do it the old way as well, just because it's tried and true, and that translate that into the new system, document it, and then when you are 1,000% ready, then you can roll it out to the team and have a switch over date of we have 60 days or whatever to fully integrate into this system, because then if everybody's doing two things two ways, it it makes things a million times worse. And everything I'm speaking of is just anecdotally of, I mean, we at one point had three different payroll things going on. We had a Google Doc and paychecks and ADP, and we were checking everything against each other, and it was nightmare. We didn't even know which was right. It was big headache. So having the over date, knowing how to use it for the way that you run your firm, and then having your team understand and present to them, you know how you hate this, great news. We will no longer have these pain points. So you can
Yeah.
get them
Selling
on board.
internally.
Yeah, because nobody likes change. So it's difficult to just say, hey, we're going to be changing. Why are we changing?
Hmm.
Because it's time to change. And I could see the potential ROI and pitfalls and integration, da da da, all these things. Then, I mean, not a lot of people are thinking about the exit and succession in a company, but being somebody that's gone through the last year of due diligence and integration
Yeah.
into a larger company, and every piece of software we have, they're like, what is this? I don't know how to use it. So then I have to be the one getting all of the reports and explaining how everything goes. Whereas, again, if we were using just a name brand thing to begin with and technology, it would have.
Yeah.
There's so many instances, and I couldn't even imagine to quantify the hours that I've spent putting square pegs in round holes
Yeah.
because of having not the correct stack from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we're helping people avoid some of those mistakes just with this conversation. Just to wrap up, Andrew, if anybody wanted to work with you, whether they're with RightWorks or not, how might they do that?
You could find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Lassise, and also tech4accountants.net with the number 4, rightworks.com. I mean, there's a million different resources and ways to connect. And fortunately, being part of a team of over 700, um, I'm not the bottleneck anymore. our
Great.
our bad tech from, not, I say bad, just like not bad, but could be better tech that we used to use in tech for accountants, and now RightWorks says, "Oh, we're going to run like a real company, and you will use real software."
Put your big boy pants on. Come join us.
Yeah, yeah. And now that migration that you were afraid of internally, you have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.